nowadays you have all these marketing gurus that tells you, look, you should film yourself crying in order to get empathy from people. Pay someone $10,000s to create videos, but eventually you're going to end up with videos with no audience to watch. Having this sort of conversation that we have right now, it is priceless. I mean, I can give value, you can get value out of me that might interest your audience. And that is where the magic happens. That is where marketing happens, because marketing is about providing value.
All right, welcome, Gal, to my startup podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for tuning in from. I think are you in Lisbon, Portugal?
So I'm in Portugal. Yeah.
Oh, Porto. Okay, gotcha. We haven't actually. A lot of my guests I meet in person at my events, but we happen to run into each other over LinkedIn because I saw you do a lot of great work with helping out podcast hosts, and of course, as someone who's hosting my own podcast, I figured, wow, this is a great way to interview someone that's an entrepreneur for my podcast, but also to learn some stuff about podcasting. So, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much, Brandon. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. So before we jump into your podcast startup, do you mind just telling me a bit about what your background is, where you grew up, just so we have some context for who you are?
Sure. So actually, what led me to marketing and to podcasting was that at the age of 6, I was notified by my mom's and my parents that my mom has she became sick, and the doctors told me that she's going to be there for 4 years or so. And my family was a family of artists, so they didn't have much money to actually invest in all those operations and all of those medicines that we needed. Out of this necessity, I learned how to market. And since the age of 14, I started working in marketing. So that led me to this specific point of being a marketer. So back then, when I started marketing, we didn't even have the like button. It was became a fan of button. So that led me to doing marketing. But growing up in Israel and being in the ecosystem of the startups, and it's like it is the ecosystem, the best ecosystem that you can go up if you want to be a startup founder or, to rub shoulders with the founders. That would probably be the best place to actually learn something. So I learned so much out of it. I led marketing in multiple companies, and I actually helped companies raise over $20 million for their funding rounds. And I've been doing product marketing for B2B tech companies. But it only led me to a certain problem that I had to address, which is that most of the founders I worked with, they don't have the time or the capacity to create content themselves. And if they were to create content organically, they could not reach their ideal clients through the algorithm, because the algorithm is not that supportive. I mean, being an Israeli, if you upload a post or something, you wouldn't get inside the feed of someone in Texas. That might be your direct persona. So that's the second problem. But the third one is obviously acquisition cost. That only to get a demo done today through LinkedIn, it would cost you around $800. And it's only a demo. It's not necessarily means that this guy is going to onboard or adopt your software. So it is a crazy world we're living in. And I've discovered podcasting as the right tool to place founders on the right shows where their audience already listens to. So this is what led me to podcasting.
Yeah, no, fascinating story there. So when you say you started off marketing at 14, I'm just curious, were you marketing your own product, your family's product, or were you working for other companies marketing?
So it's funny because I worked at a marketing company that used to serve like the biggest brands like Rexona and all of those like B2C products. And I used to be there on panels, suggesting how should they reach out to their audience, which is eventually was me back then. So I did that, and also did PPC. So I had like a Facebook group and a Facebook page with hundred thousands of followers where I post something and I actually got paid by clicks back
Oh,
then.
okay,
So
nice.
it was like the wild west of marketing back then.
Yeah, well, that's an incredible skill to have in this age of the attention economy. If you can get people to engage with content, then of course there's many things that you can do with that skill. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned how strong the Israeli startup market is. I have a past guest I interviewed. He does a whole ecosystem or a platform that helps startups launch. So I thought there could be some synergy there between you and him. I'll have to introduce you to him at some point.
I would love
Um,
that, sure.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, so moving on to Podstar, tell me how that idea came about, and what it is, and what your I guess yeah, what your core product is that you're offering to people.
So the main idea actually was from a friend of mine. He came to me one day and he told me that some podcasts suggested that he should go on the podcast and maybe like
Uh,
talk there. And I was like, hmm, podcast. Do they already establish their own audience? And he said yes. And I was like, and you can say whatever you want, right? Yes. So it's like it is completely open for
uh,
storytelling, for you to present yourself. And I was like, okay, that's a good idea. And I already had client back then
uh,
because I was doing product marketing as a service for several companies. And I've said, okay, look, maybe we should create some sort of a landing page out of it. And it was Friday. I've created a landing page, and on by Sunday, I already had my first clients who paid. It was back then. It was $3,000 to get placed on 5 shows. What 5 shows that they pick? So it's like I pitch them on shows, and they get to
okay,
pick
yeah,
which podcast they want to be on. So this is how it started, and the same company that took it like 2 days after I went live, and
yeah,
it wasn't even like with a lunch or something. It was like word of mouth, asking my clients, look, would that be efficient for you? Are you interested in that? And since then, that first client brought on his entire C-suite. So on the first month, we booked them for 5 podcasts, and the other like 3 months, I think it was the length. I booked them eventually on 30 shows. And I repurposed everything, and we've created blog posts out of this, and we've created
yeah,
newsletters out of this, and it was crazy. So that what led me to do what I do now.
yeah. So yeah, is there a certain strategy that you use to get this engagement? So I mean, a lot of people might create a landing page. You mentioned before you create posts that got a lot of followers. A lot of people might create a landing page and then no one goes on it or no one signs up for it. How do you actually get that engagement where people sign up and ultimately follow through and purchase your product?
So for me, I would say that being obviously I mentioned it before, but being from the Tel Aviv, from the ecosystem,
Yeah.
that led me to being in the right place. Okay, because what
Uh,
is luck? Luck is being in the right place and acting.
uh,
It's nothing else. Luck is about being in the right place and acting based on that.
yeah.
So I was in the right place and I acted. So this is how I grabbed luck. But
Right.
I would say that obviously you have to have like some branding because what I do lecture at the top university in Israel, and I also lecture in
Uh,
Google AI Tech School, and I do have
nice.
these credentials to go by. And I would say that to get trust for me, it is a bit easy just because
Uh,
of that, just based on that branding things that I've created. But I would highly suggest anyone to create and design what other people see when they search for your name, because you can actually do it. You can write down whatever you want on LinkedIn. You can create your own website. You can be wherever and shape how people see you.
yeah. Yes, you're saying if you go online, you see some very engaging or some profiles that seem very like I feel like I would respect this person, right? I feel like I would want to get knowledge from them. Try to shape your life experiences in a similar way so that you can put that on your website, market it, and then create a good reputation for yourself so that people are willing to take that risk on reaching out to you.
Yeah, sure. That's one thing that is essential for sure.
Yeah,
And also, eventually, when I pitch my clients to other people's shows, I always prepare some sort of a media kit for the podcasters to see. That is like the first thing I do for my clients. I've created a landing page where they see all
yeah,
the topics they can discuss, latest appearances, what are their credentials, what are their highlights of their
yeah.
professional highlights. So, yeah, and biography and stuff like that. So it is very essential to feed people with a spoon of
Yeah,
whatever it is that you want to feed them.
right. Gotcha. How did you start getting those speaking gigs to begin with? Was that just about networking, or was that again taking action in the right place?
So back then, actually, I had nothing. Okay, I just had
Okay.
an offer, which was good enough to get people interested in it,
Yeah.
but I didn't have any frameworks. I didn't have any database. I
Okay. Yeah.
actually went on Google and searched for podcasts within this
Yeah.
specific industry and typed it like manually and did everything manually, outreached manually. But
Gotcha.
nowadays, I've developed my own systems and
Right.
softwares where I have over 6 million podcasts monitored by the keywords of what's mentioned inside the episode, the
Oh, very
demography
interesting.
of the
Yeah.
audience,
Yeah.
and everything from how long the episode is and like how engaging it is. And nowadays, after almost 2 years of doing that, I already established relationships with over 600 podcasts
That's great.
and
Yeah.
like the biggest shows out there. So it is a relationship based service, I would say. So you have to
Yeah.
be there for a long time in order to
Right.
create it.
Build those relationships. That's
Yeah.
very interesting though. All that data that you have about what all these characteristics of the podcast and relating that to how they're performing. What's I mean, one, how did you get that data? Is it publicly available? And then two, what uh, what kind of patterns have you noticed for what makes a successful podcast?
Oh, wow. Okay. So, first of all,
Yeah.
I'm going to answer the first question because right now, if our listeners would go to listennotes.com, I repeat, listennotes.com, that is some sort of the Google for podcasting because it
Okay.
is a free database. They have, I think, around 4 million podcasts monitored there, and they do have some information around the shows. It is not the most accurate data, but it is good enough. So if you want
Right.
to research for right topics, right shows, I would go to listennotes.com. This is the free way to do
Great.
it. And the second question, remind me, please.
Yeah, yeah, no problem at all. The second question was just so you're looking at all this data, you're seeing which ones are performing. Are you doing that to see what's driving the good performance? And if so, like what kind of patterns have you seen that do
Sure.
drive good performance?
Okay, so I have a story about it
Okay,
actually.
yeah, perfect.
Because back in January of 2025, I got an email from the Chris Voss show. Now, do you know Chris Voss?
It sounds familiar. Is he like a professional influencer or
An FBI negotiator.
oh, okay, I don't know if I know him, but
So Chris Voss, for anyone who hears us, Chris Voss is an FBI negotiator, and he wrote a best-selling New York Times best-selling book on negotiation and how to negotiate and
ah,
stuff like
okay,
that.
yeah,
So I got an email from the Chris Voss show saying, "Look, I would love to host you on my show. And we already hosted astronauts, billionaires, and very influential people,
yeah,
even kings and princes and stuff like that." And I was
yeah,
like, okay, that sounds good. That might be a good fit for my client.
yeah,
So I just went over the email, seen that this guy mentioned that he already did over 2,000 episodes, and I cannot take it from him, yeah, because that's a lot of work. I really appreciate it, what he's doing. But eventually, clicking on the link, I seen that he charged $200 to speak on his show. Now, charging people money to speak on your show, it's nothing fancy, it's nothing unusual. I mean, some of my clients even paid $7,500 to speak on a show. And other people that I spoken to that are not my clients paid even $25,000 to speak on a show. But you know, the quality of the show decides how much you want to spend on it. And this guy, the Chris Voss show, I researched his show because back then I was only starting. So I went on listennotes.com and searched for his show. And I've seen that, look, this guy is real. He hosted so many people. And I was so excited that actually Chris Voss reached out to me via email. And I was like, okay, this guy is real. Let's put my clients on his show. And I told them to sign up. They paid the $200. And the next day, one of my friends who I usually share my wins with, he told me, look, Gal, this Chris Voss, it's not the same Chris Voss that we know.
Oh, man.
So I'm in a situation where my client paid $200 to be on some person show that it's not the real person that we thought he was. So I negotiated with Chris Voss.
Yeah.
And I won against the Chris Voss negotiator from the FBI, the one who usually negotiate with terrorists. So I negotiated with him. I got my client's money back and I put him on a different show. And I told him, look, I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to give you another podcast on my behalf. But you know, how we figured out, I went on YouTube and I've seen the engagement, and usually podcasts that promote themselves on YouTube, they have like 20,000 views, 30,000 views, but no comments. Usually they run paid ads on Asia, on other places that they pay per meal. It's like lower the cost per meal to get to the audience. It's lower. And then I've checked his LinkedIn and I've seen that there are no comments on his posts. And then I've checked other platforms that he also suggested that he operate there. And I've seen that there are no engagement. Most of the engagements are from locations that are not related to the US, I would say. This actually got me thinking, wow, how can I avoid it? Because this is a huge problem. I don't want my clients to be on shows that are not valuable for them.
Right.
So I've created some sort of a framework on how to research a podcast based on that. And one of the few things that I've always checked is engagement, because on Listen Notes, podcasts can actually claim their show there and feed Listen Notes with their own data. So it will look like they are at the top of their industry, they are top 1%, but eventually it is a pay-to-play scam. So we want to avoid pod scams.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense to really do some groundwork there, see, look beyond the surface and see who's really getting engagement. So I mean, early on in my when I started this startup podcast, I tried running some ads. Just I didn't know, is this a good thing to do or is it not? And then in hindsight now I realize just sort of like almost kind of fake views. Like they're not really engaged listeners. They're just people that tap the video and then maybe they leave. And so you're not really growing the podcast. And so since then I've just tried to do it more organically. But is there any advice that you would give to get that real organic growth, to get those engaged listeners, the comment makers? Is it just having great content?
So obviously the first thing is you have to have some great content. And by great content, I mean look, there are so many ways of doing it. So many
Yeah.
ways. I mean, if you're familiar with the Diary of a CEO, for example,
Yeah.
he's like the top podcaster out
Yeah.
there at the moment, and he reinvented it, the whole podcasting thing, because he was one of the first one to create an intro of each episode. So, for example, for each episode, it doesn't
Yeah.
start with a conversation. It starts with an intro of what's going to be on the episode. And he
Right.
also bring like he gamifies it, and he brings some sort of like you know, I bring a suitcase with X amount of dollars, and you tell me what you're going to do based on that. And just like, he
Yeah.
shares
Yeah.
thoughts. And actually, this guy is brilliant. Yeah, he's like he's the most. I aspire to speak on his show. That's just
Uh,
like my dream. He actually runs so many things so good.
yeah.
So each show before the guest comes in, he research what is their favorite song or maybe some emotional song, and before the guest actually sits, he plays this song in the studio just to get
Uh,
them a bit more
yeah. Get
emotional
them
and more
comfortable. Yeah.
connected. Yeah. So
That's
this
great.
is like great. This is amazing. And so for example, I work right now with some very famous podcasts, the 505 podcast. They used to host Seth Godin, all of those big
Yeah.
names, and I've matched them up with Matt Gray. I don't know if you're familiar with Matt Gray.
Okay.
Um, Big guy, amazing. He's like some sort of like a mentor for me, even though he's not my mentor, but because I
Yeah.
followed him and his content and his systems and stuff like that. And they are having the exact same problems that you face now.
Yeah.
But they are interested in solving that. And the only way that they want to solve it is by bringing in some audience that they already established audience for themselves on YouTube. So, for example, Matt Gray has over 200 subscribers on YouTube. So this is why they said yes to hosting him.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so having good guests, having a good concept of a show, having
Yep.
an intro before you start the speaking, and
Yeah.
getting people hyped on what's going to be inside the episode, it is essential. Because if you're good, people are going to speak about you. People are going to
Right.
share your podcast, and that's the only way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, makes sense. As they always say, content is king, right? And then, of
Yeah.
course, yeah, what you can do to in this world of short attention spans, if you can condense something into that first 5 seconds, I'm sure that goes a long way to compete with all these short videos out there. And yeah, speaking of short videos, do you find that shorts shorts like short video content, chopping that up from a podcast and posting that, do you find is that very helpful for podcasts?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is helpful for everyone actually, because it is
Yeah.
helpful for the podcast because it is a good way to lure audience in.
Yeah.
Just like
Right.
spreading it, and the cost, but like the costs to actually share it on social media, because when you share it on social media, it is one thing. When you pay for views, it's other thing.
Right.
And to share it on social media and to boost it with paid ads, that is it is good. I mean, if you get audience through that, amazing, and you spend less usually than promoting yourself on LinkedIn, based on that. And I would argue that my B2B clients, the way we do it is we edit each show that they've been on to 3 different videos, and we
Okay.
take that and we do some sort of like a remarketing campaign for anyone
Yeah.
who has been on their website, for anyone who has been on their funnel, anyone inside their Salesforce, all these CRMs and stuff, and we boost the show based on that. And I don't know if you're familiar with Google's law, 7-11-4. Do you know that concept?
Seven. I don't know. I don't think I know that one.
So the 7-11-4. Let me just a second open it
Yeah.
up here because I don't want to mistake it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The 7-11-4 is a rule created by Google, and it is served us to actually understand how the client journey is going, because customers, what they need before they choose you is 7 hours of engagement with you. I'm talking about the cumulative
Okay.
time of a potential customer to spend, consuming your content. So it could be
Yeah.
posts, it could be blogs, videos, emails, podcasts, newsletters,
Gotcha.
all those things. They have to consume 7 hours of engagement with you
Yeah.
across 11 touch points. So it's going to be 11 individual interactions. So it could be like opening a mail, liking your post, visiting
Okay.
your webpage, or reading your blog, or something like that. And
Yeah.
it has to be across 4 different platforms. So it could be your
Oh, wow.
website,
Interesting. Yeah.
YouTube, LinkedIn, and that is Google's law of how to get people to buy from you, for
Okay.
B2B.
Yeah, so that's a great rule of thumb to go by. That's something that I would definitely keep in mind. One thing, so right now I for example post on LinkedIn and YouTube. I'm looking to expand to other platforms, of course, but it does take some more time. Is there a certain like platform that posts to multiple platforms? I know they exist out there, but is there one that you recommend for that works very well for podcasters?
Look, in terms of distribution, there are lots
There's
of
lots of
platforms
yeah.
at the moment. Yeah, lots of
Okay,
platforms at
there's
the
lots.
moment.
Yeah.
I don't think I can recommend one.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's no problem. Yeah. Yeah, no, there are a lot of them out there and but you do recommend using one rather than doing
sure,
catered
absolutely.
posts for each platform. Yeah.
Yeah, because you need to be across all these platform, across
Yeah.
all those touch points, and you don't have to actually, you don't have to stress about it. Because
Yeah.
however you do it now with YouTube, with LinkedIn, that should be nice. But you can take each episode and create some sort of newsletter out of it, or maybe a blog post out of it, and also, it could serve you for SEO purposes, for
Right.
backlinks. So it only like everything that you're gonna do, it's gonna add up and accumulate to something bigger.
Right.
And this is what we want, right? Bigger things.
Yeah,
So yeah.
and speaking of accumulating more value, I had a recent guest who he's working on an AI product that it just reads through the transcript of your content and then kind of automatically selects some salient points that it can turn into short videos. So maybe there's even some or there are some ways to automate this short video production and yeah, because I mean you already have the content, right? And it's like why not get more out of the same
Repurposing.
content, right? It's free content almost. You're just reusing the
Yeah.
same content, breaking it down into a different format, and now you can maybe automate that with AI as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It is the best use I can find for AI, because creating content with AI, it just ends up vanilla.
yeah,
This is why podcast happens, because we have like a genuine person-to-person interaction, and we can share stories, we can laugh, we can do all of these
yeah,
things together. But AI cannot do it. But what it
yeah,
can do is to find and highlight those specific moments and
yes,
repurpose it. So yeah.
absolutely.
I've been using some tools. If you want, I can suggest. Obviously, they're not paying me to do it, but I
Uh,
used Opus, but I found it to be a bit vanilla and just like, out of brand for me. And I love things aligning with my brand. So I
is
took
that Quad Opus?
Opus Pro. They run the like
Uh,
so many ads now. Opus
okay,
Pro,
okay,
it's like you put URL for your video, for example, or you can upload the whole episode,
okay. I see. Yeah,
and they repurpose the hell out of it. They create like
yeah,
30 different videos out of it, and you can get your theme inside it, your brand. But usually, what I do, I took it from Opus and uploaded it to Canva, and actually ended
okay,
up editing it there, because
okay.
Canva
Gotcha.
is so
So
friendly.
what? It kind of brings you like maybe 80% of the way there, and then you edit the last part, or yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
eventually nowadays I have editors working for me. So it's like,
nice.
they do all the shenanigans with After Effects, with motion
Right.
graphics, and all of those, which are essential, I would say, I would
Yeah.
argue. But yeah, if you don't have the time, I would highly consider just going maybe to Opus or to other AI platform that cat snippets and repurpose.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Thanks for that tip. You mentioned before that you had like kind of a mentor that you hadn't met before, but you still followed. Mentors are crucial when you're jumping into any kind of domain. Were there any mentors that you worked with, like face to face, that really kind of introduced you in those early days to marketing, or later on as you jumped into the founder space?
So I would share with you one of my hacks.
Okay.
Now, one of my hacks is usually when I find something interesting, or maybe I found someone interesting in the internet. Usually, what I do is I would go to their profiles and search for wherever they got the resources from, and I would create
Okay.
like a book hit list.
Yeah.
And usually I go on my Kindle and using also Audible. So it's like I'm completely focused. I can just like skim a book in 2 hours or 3 hours. And, eventually, if you skim more than 5 books on the specific problems that you have, it will
Yeah.
serve you way more than speaking with someone who's been there and just like maybe
That's a good
done
point. Yeah.
that exact thing. So I would say that dedicating the right time with the minimum friction, with the minimum, um, no phone is
Yeah.
aside. No, even like I would take off my watch because it usually vibrates and just like, it gets me out of the
Yeah.
zone.
Throws you off. Yeah.
Um, so I would just put the headphones on, my Kindle in front of me, and I would just skim the hell out of a subject. And in a week or two, you'll be way ahead of anyone else because blogs are okay, podcasts are good and great,
Uh,
but in books, some people store over 40 years of experience in one book.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, because I wonder sometimes. I host a lot of networking events, and it is incredibly valuable to hear what people have to say. But at the same time, you do have to wonder. I mean, people are just talking about what happens to come up in their head in that moment, right? And that's not necessarily the boiled down version of their 40 years of experience. It's just what they happen to say in that moment. And so, versus a book, they really are sitting down and thinking, how can I distill what I've learned over the past 10 plus years, and put it all into a book. And so it definitely seems like there may be much better information in a book, because people are taking the time to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, your advice is well taken. So transitioning back to Podstar here, and what your goals are. What do you see as the ultimate vision for Podstar? What do you want it to become eventually?
So it's a good question because, frankly speaking, I just relaunched the whole service as PodStar. It used to be Bold Voice, but I
Okay.
relaunched it on December, like 2 months ago, almost 2 months ago. And I started from zero. Now I have a community at school with over 300 founders, including billionaires, VCs that
Wow.
looking actually to invest in founders inside the community.
That's
So if
great.
you're interested in, in getting funding, maybe you should join us.
I think
But
I applied. I'm not sure if it's still in process, or if I got in, or what, but I'll make sure to be involved in it after this interview.
So yeah, I'm gonna let you in, obviously. But speaking of it, I had my dream for 2026 is to be accountable for over 10,000 podcast episodes.
Okay, yeah,
Um, and this is just one thing because I want to make it some sort of a movement, because nowadays you have all these marketing gurus that tells you, look, you should film yourself crying in order to get empathy from people, or
yeah,
you have to maybe pay someone $10,000s to create videos, but eventually you're going to end up with videos with no audience to watch. So it's like you got all these marketing gurus, and I think that eventually, like, having this sort of conversation that we have right now, it is priceless. I mean, I can give
yeah,
value, you can get value out of me that might interest your audience. And that is where the magic happens. And that is
yeah,
where marketing happens, because marketing is about providing value. And I do it for free. And I would say that I'm aiming to make Podstar a movement. rather than a service. This is why I usually take on, like, I've been working with CMOs, VP marketing, and all of those like big names from big brands and big tech companies. And eventually I ended up saying to myself, look, I'm like Prometheus. I have the fire. I know
Yeah.
what this technology is. I know how to use it. And I know
Right.
so many people that doesn't know it and maybe would get lured into some shitty marketing. I'm sorry about the word, but pardon about my French. But they
No
would get
problem.
lured on other like marketing gurus that gonna sell them something that is not even solving the pinnacle of what they're after. So I want to make it accessible. I want to make it. I want to make podcast guessing a movement,
Right.
and that is what I'm aiming, because it is funny. I just started it 2 months ago, and I already had the biggest companies going after me, looking to maybe get my service for them. And I already had clients coming up to me and saying, look, you know so much about podcasts. Maybe you can help us decide which podcast to sponsor. So now it's not just me getting to podcasts and saying, look, this is he's going to be
Yeah.
your guest on the show. It's like, look, I got so much money to give you. Would you mind taking it? So it's like, it's
Yeah.
really, really overwhelming where I'm at. And also working with Matt Gray, this been like my dream for, I would say, maybe 5 years. And I ended up doing it, and matching him with a podcast that I regularly listen.
And
So
sorry, what was that name?
Matt Gray.
Okay, and he's a sorry if I'm not familiar, but is he a
Yes.
podcaster or?
So no, he's like a solo founder, solo creator, a
Okay.
systems guy, helping you to achieve more with less. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
location independent, all of these things that I believe in, values
Right.
that I believe in.
Yeah.
But working with him, for example, that was my dream, and now I accomplished it. So for my goals, I would say just to make podcast guessing accessible and to make it a movement and to stop all these marketing goals shenanigans.
Yeah. And no, intuitively, I feel what you mean by creating a movement. It seems to have worked. You've gotten these big guests, but when it comes to like day to day, if someone's just sitting by themselves, they want to start a company and they want to to be founder led, publicly founder led, create that movement. What does that actually mean day to day? How do I? What's the first step? Is it about? I know you mentioned the value based marketing where you're not just exposing something to someone, but you're directly providing the value. I'm sure that's one element of it. But is it also like telling a story? What are the those details that someone should start doing to create a movement?
To create a movement,
Yeah,
well, it was
and I know it's
hard.
not easy. So I won't judge you too harshly here, but
So one book that I read about it that is really good is Expert Secret by Russell Branson. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Yeah, big
okay,
guy, big name. He's
yeah,
like
yeah,
owner of of the funnels thing. So in his book, he actually mentioned that he studied like cults and cultures and
okay,
movements and stuff like that. And usually one of the things that people do in order to make it sound like a movement is to make the thing repeatable. And as long as you put effort in, you're going to get out much more. So I would say, and I would argue that podcasting is sort of the same, because you can meet maybe your future client, the next podcast that you're going to be on, maybe the next show that you're going to listen to, you're going to get your brilliant $1 billion idea. And maybe so I would say, and this is how I framed it, you're always one podcast away from the
uh,
next big thing, from the next big, whatever it is. It could be
yeah,
investment, partnership. It could be even, a relationship.
yeah.
So yeah, so make it sound like it is something that is like it's like an open ocean. You can go wherever with it.
Yeah, and to be honest, that is kind of the way it feels with doing this kind of interview show where you're trading, you're meeting with people, you're exchanging ideas, and each person that I have on here, it's like, oh, I feel like privileged to even have the chance to talk to them. I mean, you're specializing in podcasts. You have all these tips and tricks for how to really grow an audience, and to just be able to have that conversation, then to scale it up to everyone is it definitely it feels like a movement, right? Just kind of naturally when you do meet up with various people that you meet along your startup journey and have a conversation with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're always one podcast away from your next big
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. Yeah. What do you think will keep PodStar at the forefront of? I'm sure that there's other like competitors. We'll keep PodStar at the forefront to make sure that it does achieve your vision of creating this movement. I know this sort of relates to the last question a bit, but just I guess day to day, what are you looking at to make sure okay people are going to choose PodStar over some other service?
That must be me, I would say. That must be me. I mean, because look, it is a founder led brand
Uh
and it is something that I'm in charge.
yeah.
And, Napoleon Bonaparte said, if you want to do something good, do it yourself. So I'm
Uh
not going to let anyone ruin whatever it is that I'm doing.
yeah.
And I'm 100% motivated by value and positivity.
Yeah.
And I don't see anyone as a competitor rather than maybe, I don't know, maybe someone who I should work with. Because,
I think that's true. I think that's very smart. Yeah, because it's I I mean it's tempting to think of people in the same industry as competition, and to some extent they are, but at the same time they're going to be the people that can assist you the most because they're in your same industry. I mean they can help a lot, and you can cross reference cross yeah sort of help each other in terms of podcasts, go on each other's podcasts. Right, you don't have to be competitive with the person. You can both
mhm,
get together and assist each other. So yeah, it seems like there's a theme of that kind of you said myself having that founder led approach and sort of taking ownership and having yourself really putting yourself directly behind your product and kind of driving it as you scale up. So yeah,
yeah.
that definitely makes sense.
And the other thing is when you put yourself behind the product, behind the company, behind the name,
Yeah.
you are going to do whatever it takes to make
Yeah,
sure
it's
that the
true.
value is perceived. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because the product's reputation is your reputation, right? So it's
yeah,
you're all in. You're all in.
I'm all in.
Yeah. And what would you say so did you start this in Portugal or Israel or
So yeah, I started it in Israel.
yeah.
Actually, so it's a funny story because I was before that I was doing product marketing for companies, but what led me to go on my own journey and start my own ventures as a solo founder
Yeah.
was the war. So the war started at the 7th of October.
Yeah.
And me and my wife, she's a YouTuber. She's amazing. I love her. I just
Oh,
wanted to
nice.
mention it. We were right in the middle between moving apartment
Yeah.
and the war started and we had 2 weeks
Mm.
until our lease end.
Yeah.
So we packed everything we had in boxes. We put
Yeah.
all the boxes inside her dad's apartment
Yeah.
and we flew to Portugal because we owned an apartment here and I have my own
Okay.
citizenship here. And it was okay, look, this is going to be messy and we just want to
Yeah.
live in peace because peace is essential. You
Yeah.
cannot be
Absolutely.
creative if you're starving. You cannot be creative if you're under missiles attack. You cannot be
Right.
creative or be productive if you're terrified or I don't know, like I had many friends who actually died back then.
No,
Um,
sorry to hear that.
so it was so messy. We needed to detach ourselves, move to Portugal. We've been here for 3 months and we had all these ideas and we had all these process of like, creating a website, creating an offer, creating all these kind of things. So moving to Portugal gave us our sanity back and it gives us the productivity and creativeness back. So yeah, right now we are in Portugal and we're enjoying it. But it started in Israel.
That's great. Yeah, that's a definitely I mean, starting a startup already takes a lot of persistence, but to make a big move like that, I think you made a right decision to create that stability so you have the time, the energy. It's not taken up worrying about what's going on in your environment. So, and I think that's a big thing in general in life, just setting up the right environment for success rather than trying to have the willpower and discipline to be successful despite your bad environment. So I think that's like a good lesson in general is to fit your environment so that's most conducive for your success.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I would say that um, I was a Navy diver, and we used to say
Okay.
that 70% of the operation is in the
Yeah.
briefing room.
Right. Yeah. The preparation, right? What you do
The
beforehand.
preparation,
Yeah.
getting the environment done, and getting yourself familiar with whatever it is that you're about to do. But
Yeah.
70% of the operation is in the briefing room. 30% is on the acting part, but 70%
Uh,
is setting the environment, setting the mindset, setting all of those kind of things. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And do you feel like the podcasting industry is promising? Of course, it's the latest form of industry is disrupting the mainstream media's. Many people that have different views have been able to compete. But how do you feel the market is right now? I mean, some people might wonder, is it oversaturated? Do I still have a chance to compete at this point, or is this just still the beginning and it's still going to continue to grow and more voices from different people besides the mainstream will be heard?
That's a great question because I monitor 6 million podcasts,
Yeah,
and
right.
most of the podcasts, like statistically speaking, most of the podcasts die after recording 3 episodes.
Oh,
And
okay.
most of the podcast doesn't hit 1,000 subscribers, for example, for at least a year, or
Yeah,
1,000 listeners for at least a year. So I would say that it is a bit saturated, but eventually, whenever a good show comes up,
yeah,
it spreads like wildfire, and everyone
right.
gets to hear about it, and everyone's get to hear it. But nowadays, it's like every we have a joke about it that every woman in Tel Aviv can have their own sex show on podcast, just like sex related podcast, and
Right,
just like um, um, it doesn't hit the nerve. It doesn't add value to the
right.
humankind. So eventually those shows are like, they spread and get going after like 7, 10 episodes maybe.
Yeah,
And it takes consistency, it takes grit to create a good show. And eventually grit is like the best selector of the time, because it's like it's a
yeah,
Darwin law. You have to go or adapt, and if you don't go, you just die. Yeah,
right. Yeah, because if you don't persist, you're not competing anymore. So you can't you can't make it. So the ones that will be successful will be the ones not that they won't be the ones that aren't doing it anymore, right? So of course
yeah,
it makes sense that if you're
yeah.
persistent, then that's the only way that you can make it through.
And
Uh,
I also must say that, look, it necessarily, uploading an episode every 2 days wouldn't get you as far as uploading the right value, because I've
okay.
been listener of, like, for example, Darknet Diaries, one of the podcasts that I love the most.
Yeah.
And this guy, Jack Resider, is uploading maybe an episode in every 2 months
Yeah.
or so, but each episode is like a masterpiece. And each episode,
Okay.
he's got his audience so amped out about his episodes, and just like everyone is just like mailing him, look, we want more episodes, please give
Yeah.
us more. And that is like a good example for a podcast.
Yeah. So you would say quality over quantity then, because that's my brother has a history podcast, and it's always he has fans saying, "Oh, when's the next episode coming out?" But you'd say it's better off to have that and to be slow and deliberate, or not slow, but slower and deliberate and create quality content than to pump out content every few days.
Yeah, because then you're not gonna scratch the value that your listeners want. Because each
Yeah,
show, each podcast has their promise to their listeners. And if you don't
yeah.
have a promise to your listeners, you're not considered a good podcast eventually.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
And
That promise, what the listeners expect to get out of your podcast. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, people are going to dedicate around 45 minutes, consecutive minutes of listening just to you and maybe your guest. You
Yeah.
have to have a strong offer. You have to have a strong
Yeah.
value that you promise them. And you have to keep
Absolutely.
up with this value. And if you're not going to do it, eventually they're not going to listen to your next show.
Right. No, that makes 100% sense. What would you say? Of course, we were talking about challenges before. You had to uproot your entire life, move to another country, but and maybe that was your greatest challenge, balancing that with the startup stuff. But overall, what would you say is your biggest challenge that you faced during your startup experience so far? And there's so many.
So
I always say, yeah. So it's
yeah, I
yeah,
would say I do have one,
yeah,
and it is focus. I would say,
focus, yeah,
because as you can see me, I'm a very active person. I love speaking with people. And eventually, just like 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with someone who I just introduced him to Podstar. And he was like, wow, it's so great. Look, I'm going to invest in you
yeah,
$2,000 and we're going to raise seed money in by the end of the month if you only take this offer. And just like,
yeah,
okay, look, I'm not interested in these kind of things.
yeah,
Usually, when I was a bit younger, I would just jump on these kind of things. But I
yeah,
would say that focus, what to say no to, it is
yeah,
the most essential thing because I can cross sell with so many SaaS tools, with so many services, with so many companies, and I need to pick the ones that are good for my brand
yeah,
and the ones that are valuable for my audience, for my clients.
yeah.
So I would say that focus and getting the right thing, that is mostly the struggle for me nowadays.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, thanks for reinforcing that for myself too, because I feel like that's something that I also have to make sure to focus on one thing because there are so many things. I mean, yeah, trying to start a startup and doing a podcast thing. I do worry that I'm also getting too divided and conquering myself by doing that. But I always try to think how can I make sure that all these things are pointing in the same direction so that they're each helping the other out. But yeah, no, thanks for that. Um,
yeah. Because us entrepreneurs,
yeah,
and when we have audience, when we have a call, when we have that deeper feeling that we wake
yeah,
up in the morning and, oh, I got this list of things that I have to do, and people see it from the side and they see the momentum, they see our velocity, our us accelerating and just like getting things done, and they want to move us from our own direction to their direction. Eventually, if you
mhm,
say yes, you're gonna end up losing all this momentum towards
yeah,
your direction to other people, like
yeah,
wants and beliefs and stuff like that, and it's
sure.
not really good. So you have to say no so many times, and it is hard for me, especially because
It's
I'm a
yeah,
nice
I find the
person.
same thing. It is tough to say no, but yeah, you have to yeah, not think of it like you're missing any opportunity or you're being insulting to the person you're saying no to. It's just you have to respect your own dreams and goals, and for that reason, say no to things that'll distract you from them.
Yeah.
And just one or two more questions here. So, yeah, my last question is usually, what's the most valuable insight that you would give to someone else starting a similar startup or just a startup in general? You kind of already said focus. I don't know if there's anything more you wanted to add to that, or is that's the main piece of advice you would give?
So I have another advice,
Okay.
and this one cost me so much money.
Yeah.
um So right now I'm a solo founder, and it is because the things that I've been through. I had my own LLC with partners, and I had my
Yeah.
own partnerships in other companies and stuff. And look, finding the perfect match, the perfect business partner, it is so hard.
it is tough.
It is tough. I mean, people. I know so many people that cannot find their personal, just like their relationship partner, and
Yeah,
to find someone that you are willing to create and dedicate most of your working hours, most of your waking hours as well,
yeah,
towards the same goal that is aligned with their goal, it is really hard.
yeah,
So I would say that as a founder, I would try and go and develop an MVP,
yeah,
minimal viable product. If you don't familiar with MVP, or listeners, but I would try and create an MVP myself without any partners, and
yeah,
then from that MVP, I would go to the POC, proof of concept. I would go and try and do it myself before I partner up with anyone, because
yeah.
these days you don't need much. I mean, you have all the AI tools in the world that can serve you. You don't
It's
have to
true.
know how to code. You don't have to know how to market, for example. You have so many things that can help you on achieving this journey alone. And I know it sounds just like, maybe sad that I don't share my trust with people, but eventually my company, my goal, my call, it's mine.
Yeah,
And sharing it, I have to have certain people to share it. And we have to be so aligned in order to develop that thing together. So I would argue people not to take business partners. People are doing it just like, oh yeah, he's been with me. I know him from kindergarten or something like that. And it is nice. It is really nice. I mean, I've been there,
right.
but I lost hundred thousands of dollars because of this.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And the lesson brought me to this specific time where I've decided to just go solo. And now
yeah.
I have two companies, solo companies, which are operating
Great.
smoothly, amazing. I systemized it and it's been going well. And I don't need partners. And it just, it's one of the most painful lessons that I've got as an
Yeah,
entrepreneur.
yeah. No, I've had a similar experience. I mean, it really is tough to. It's already so risky starting a company in the first place. But if there's this extra variable, if you're not sure if you can work with this person long term, long hours, 80-hour weeks, or whatever, then that's another variable. Which it can have its advantages too. I'm not saying it's always negative. But yeah, it is maybe the idea of a solopreneur is more since it is more viable because of all the AI tools that you mentioned. It's worth considering that it may be a good way to reduce some of the risk of having some fallout or some issues with the partner. But yeah, you have to wait. It's a judgment call. So
Yeah.
it gets down to the person and what their situation is. I guess one last thing for an interview podcast where you interview startup founders, do you have any tips?
Look, I think that my main thing, the whole shenanigan that I'm running, the whole podcasting thing is about telling the story. Okay. People
Right.
want to hear the story, your
Yes.
story, to develop some sort of empathy with you, because look, I shared some of my most painful period of life with you
Yeah.
here, and I think that some people maybe at the moment listening to us are at their lowest point, and
Yeah.
listening to me maybe would get them the motivation they need.
Yeah.
Because look, some fella from Israel whose mother died out of cancer, and he learned marketing his own way,
Yeah.
and now he has two businesses and he's lecturing at Google, and just like,
There
you
you
know
go.
everything is possible. And I would say that yeah, just emphasize it, let people
Yeah.
know your story, because people usually hide behind their achievements, and they usually
Uh,
hide behind titles. And founders, it is nothing if you don't have a call. It is nothing if you don't have a story, because
yeah.
I can tell you of how I've developed an app that helps you, I don't know, maybe dog sitting, but I don't have a dog. So how is this related to me?
Right.
So you have to
Yeah.
have a story.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. I mean, on this podcast, I since the beginning, I knew the power of a story, and I tried to focus on getting the guest story. But it's a good point that I really should try to introduce more of my own story, and not that you still want to let the guest talk more is what I've seen from comments on different interview podcasts, but yeah, over time to weave my own story so that it kind of frames the context of my viewpoint, and people can kind of see how that viewpoint exchanges ideas with the guest, and it'll kind of enrich the whole podcast, I think. So yeah, thanks for that advice, and I'll take that to heart and try to incorporate that. But yeah, Gal, it's been a pleasure having you on. I appreciate all the advice that you've given. There's numerous things that you've said that apply directly to my own podcast here, so I appreciate that insight, and we'll definitely highlight a lot of those in the post when we post this, and it'll help out a lot of other people, and hopefully drive some more people to your PodStar community.
Amazing. So thank you so much for having me here. And if any one of our listeners is interested on speaking on podcasts where their audience already established, so I would highly recommend checking my school community. It is totally free. We don't charge nothing. We have so many podcasts there and founders just like you. And each Monday we're doing matchmaking mania. And it is totally free. It is a movement. So just go to school.com/podstar. It is school.com/podstar. That's it. And I'm hoping to see and help anyone with their journey, because it is a movement and you're one podcast away from your next big thing.
All right. There you go. Anyone listening, please, go join the movement. I'll be joining myself, and I'll be an active participant. I can't wait to discuss our results, our observations in the podcast world, and yeah, really grow this movement. So thanks again, Gal, and until next time, we'll have you on again once you develop PodStar and we have an even bigger community. All right,
Amazing. Thank you so much.